So let's get started talking about where we are and where we're going. So we're going to do a very quick retrospective on that was then, and then we're going to talk about where we are now, this highly connected consumer and what that's done from their point of view, and then also from our point of view as marketers and businesses. We'll talk a little bit about what is omnichannel, and then 5 pro tips for succeeding in the world of omnichannel. And then last but not least, we'll talk about inspiration, which is other people's success stories. I personally find that hearing how other people have addressed things really kind of helps drive home the point of what I can do with my team. And then maybe a little bit of a roadmap for success going forward. So let's start with in the beginning. Unfortunately, there's no dramatic music in the beginning. There was only one selling channel. And it seemed like this was pretty good, right? We were happy with this, because we could actually kind of control the dialogue. But there were a lot of downsides of this too, if we really think about it. First, we had broadcast marketing. Broadcast marketing, frankly, was really, really expensive and also really difficult to measure. Second thing was we couldn't really grow our business. We either had to use other techniques like additional stores, or we had to do things like phone-based sales. So we're really kind of limited. We're in a box, frankly. And actually, the part about measurement is really paramount to this whole conversation. John Wanamaker, he's the one who actually is quoted with the famous quote of, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted, I just don't know which half. So Wanamaker is actually a lot like us. He was a business leader. He was actually a political figure, late 1800s through the early 20s, so to speak. He had 16 stores that actually eventually became Macy's, for those of you who weren't aware. You know, if John Wanamaker was here today, he would be really excited because he could actually measure spend and he could measure ROI. And how has that happened? Rapidity of change. The world has changed. Sure, there was this internet thing that started in the 90s and went through the early 2000s. We put up some web pages. We kind of thought all of a sudden we had sort of a multi-channel opportunity. But actually, the world changed more than that between 2005 and 2013, pardon me. This is actually Pope Benedict XVI's papal election and inauguration in Vatican City. And you see here in the bottom right-hand corner one really sweet flip phone. I'm pretty sure it's a Sanyo. That's it. It's 2005. Everybody in this room was on the internet in 2005. But this was the experience that we had as consumers in 2005. You flash forward to 2013, 8 years later. This is Pope John Francis' papal election and inauguration in Vatican City. And it's a completely different world. Not only do you see smartphones, but you see iPads. But also what's underlying here is not just the technology itself, but that we as consumers suddenly became connected to things, places, people that we cared about, and we became our own broadcast medium, even in some cases on an anonymous level. So what does that all mean? It means that technology adoption has massively accelerated even since that time. So if the internet took a third of the time of television to reach 50 million users, what's fascinating to me is that visual networks like Snapchat and Instagram have taken half the time of the internet. And so what that tells us is we've gotten more and more comfortable, A, with technology, B, we as consumers have more and more ways to go about being connected, and 3, every time you turn around, there's going to be a new possible way for us to connect as consumers across the social mobile web. I heard actually last week on my way into work that Apple just hit selling the billionth phone, their billionth iPhone. So again, back to those pictures. They also projected that it'll take them half the time. It took them 8 years. It took them half the time to sell the 2 billionth. So in 4 years, it's going to be half the time of what it took to do the first time. So what did we do? Well, we tried our best to respond. And frankly, I don't hold us completely. I kind of actually hold us a little bit harmless as marketers. Some of it wasn't so pretty, but also it was about what was possible, right? Platforms themselves hadn't really adapted to be marketer friendly. You know, the early days of Facebook, which is actually where I came from, initially was working on social technologies for Facebook and Twitter. You know, they were really more focused on users. They were focused on getting that 50 million user, and then they were focused on getting the 500 millionth user. So it wasn't so marketer focused. So we did our best, and we're going to try to keep people innocent in this process when we point out things that we don't think were that cool. But like, did you really want a $50 gift card for boneless wings? I mean, is that really going to drive engagement? Is that going to drive relationship? Does that drive ongoing purchase from a brand? And then QR codes, really not pretty at all. There's nothing about a QR code that's pretty. If you see a QR code on sign that's in somebody's yard and you scan it, is that really going to drive engagement? Is that really going to drive likes? So it was sort of a difficult time, and what we weren't actually addressing, what we weren't really thinking through, is what has actually occurred. So this was a study done by Harris Interactive, and they talk about the consumerization of brands. So what happened in this mass media, one-to-one, one-to-many channel type of dynamic is that we were completely in control. There was a straight line between and the control of the message, the delivery of the message, and the end result. And then there was this weird in-between period of time called multi-channel marketing, and then all of a sudden there was a social one-to-many. And what happened was consumers now own the dialogue. They own the context of which our brands and businesses actually perform and basically are received. And I think what's fascinating is really ultimately customers want a better customer experience. 86% of consumers will pay more for a better customer experience. The challenge for us as businesses is figuring out how do I deliver that customer experience. And this is actually a really good example, and not just a terrible excuse to have Grumpy Cat in a presentation down here in the bottom, or to talk about chicken fries. But this is a good example of a brand responding to this consumerization approach. So apparently Burger King's been struggling with millennials. Not terribly surprising. You know, it's fast food, that type of thing. So they started listening to their audience of followers. They started listening to what they were talking about. And there was this crazy latent demand for chicken fries. Has anyone here actually had a chicken fry? Nobody? Yes! Okay, there are chicken fries. I love it. So I understand, by the way, that with chicken, because I haven't had one yet, chicken fries is basically chicken in the shape of a fry, and it's fried. It's as far from kale as you can get, I think. So long story short, there was this latent demand for chicken fries, much in the way that happens sometimes with the social web, and they were talking about it, and they were like, please, would you please bring back chicken fries? So Burger King brought back chicken fries. And I know for sure, as you do, that there's somebody in food services and food development that was not thinking at all about chicken fries. They're like, that's not what I have in the roadmap, but that's what people wanted. When Burger King brought it back, they of course launched it socially. They received something like 2 billion in impressions, and 95% of those impressions were organic. It was the consumer sharing the message, by the way, that chicken fries was back. Think about that. Used to have been a paid mechanism. Now this is complete demand driven from the consumers all the way through to launch, the sharing, and the reach of it being all pretty much organic through social. So this actually brings to mind another challenge, and it's what John Wanamaker would have liked to have seen, data. So our CTO, Joe Rieger, was on stage yesterday at the marketplace, and he did a 90-second pitch, and he kept talking about the big ball of data that's created. Well, that big ball of data, in a definitional terms, is 2.5 quintillion bytes of data every single day. He tells me quintillion is a real word. 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created every single day. And 75% of that data is created by us. It's not created by businesses, it's created by all of these connected consumers and everything they're doing. It's the 8,796 Snapchats that are uploaded every single second, which, by the way, turns out to be something like 500,000 a minute, and then it gets pretty crazy after that. And the reality is that data is only going to do 20 times what it is right now by 2020. So there's a good news and a bad news thing, right? We as consumers are leaving massive amounts of footprint of data about what we're doing, how we're doing discovery, how we're sharing, what we like, what we don't like, and actually purchase, and then actually, frankly, advocation or detraction about businesses and brands, but we aren't necessarily harnessing all that data. So that makes marketing more complicated. So we're looking at this and we're like, man, can't we just go back to the way it was before? But really, this is a good situation. Today, we have a peer-based relationship, not only with influencers, advocates, detractors, but also with our customers. And frankly, brand is no longer a generic thing. It's a collection of its people in addition to its attributes. So we have a phrase in our team where we say it's not about business to business or business to consumer anymore. It's about person to person based marketing. So what do you do? We've now painted the picture of the challenge. What do we do? How do you tie all these channels together? How do you understand your customers? How do you understand all this data, not just about your customers, but maybe people who haven't purchased from you yet? So our point of view is that it's people, strategy, and technology. You guys have got the people. We're going to spend the time focusing on the strategy and the technology side of this. So you got to meet consumers on their terms. Omnichannel marketing. Everybody, acceptance. Hashtag acceptance. It's time to accept this concept of putting customers at the center of their universe. So, it's an interesting thing about omnichannel marketing. If you do research on it, if you listen to definitions around it, we don't love the word, right? There's nobody in here who goes, man, that word rocks. I love saying omnichannel marketing. So that's fine. Maybe we come up with a different definition for this over time, but at its very core, what it is meeting customers where they are, putting customers at the center of everything they do. And in some ways, maybe it's still aspirational. We're on the journey from multi-channel marketing to omni-channel marketing, but it's good to have aspirations, it's good to have goals, and this is where we need to move forward to. So let's go step back to where we started, single channel. That's hashtag Throwback Thursday, or hashtag TBT. Then we went multi-channel. That was Transformation Tuesday. We were feeling pretty badass about ourselves, right? Then we're cross-channel, almost there, but not quite. Now, this is what we're talking about. It's about relationship goals and relationships with your consumers. So, do you still think of omnichannel as optional? I'm seriously not letting you out of this room until you agree that omnichannel is not optional. Katie, bar the door. So, Billy and Family Circus. There used to be this thing called newspapers. They were delivered to your house every single day. Okay, and there was a section called comics. So while your dad was reading the business section, you were typically poring over the comics section. On Sundays, they came and they were in color. It was amazing. So Family Circus. It actually launched on February 29th, 1960. It's still considered the most widely syndicated comic strip. It's about a family, basically a family of 6. There's 4 kids, and there's a couple of parents. And Billy is sort of the oldest of the 4 kids, and he's the central figure, if you will. Billy never took a straight line from one point to the other. Never took a straight line. In this particular example, his mother really just wants him to go get a bottle of vanilla extract, and she needs it right away, and by the way, the store closes. You better hurry up, kid, we close in 5 minutes, or we close at 5. So you see the path that Bill took. Billy's just all over the place. He stopped by a couple other stores, he went to a playground, he saw some friends at a pool. I mean, he's having a grand old time going on his purchase journey to buy vanilla extract. The reality is that's exactly what our customers are doing today. They do not take a straight line anymore. The point in time which they drop into the consideration, the awareness funnel, if you will, the things that they connect with before they make that final purchase is just as haphazard as the one that Billy took on his way to get the bottle of vanilla extract for his mother. So, what do? Now we talk about how to solve the problem. 5 hashtag pro tips for implementing omnichannel. So we're going to, as we go through this, we're going to talk about examples of the good, the bad, and the not so pretty of omnichannel marketing. And again, it's all about improvement. Well, one of the things that we're going to talk about in here is an example around New Year's resolutions. It's good to think about how you start, you proceed, and then you get a whole lot better. So step number 1, personalization. The good, the bad, and the ugly of personalization. You know what's interesting about personalization? In 2005, back to that slide of Pope Benedict XVI, we are on email, right? And we did some surfing of the web, and we did all kinds of stuff, but we really didn't do that much personal identification. Like if you went to a news group, like NNTP, you could do that generically. You didn't really have to identify who you are. But something really cool happened around 2006, Facebook, LinkedIn. We started identifying ourselves across the social and digital web. And then we kind of freaked out somewhere in 2008 and 2009, and Facebook was going to like take over our lives, and so we went through a bunch of stuff. But if you really think about it today, we identify ourselves all the time. We've gotten really comfortable with telling businesses who we are as consumers. But that also raises the stakes on our ability to address back to the consumer knowing who they are. So if I'm willing to tell you who I am, I now believe you know who I am across all these different channels where I interact with your brand. But we're not really doing that. That's sort of the not so pretty part of this. So here's a really good example. Email blast on layered, funky necklaces, kind of like this one. And I just sent it out to everybody in my list, regardless of their last purchase, regardless of their demographics, regardless of the last action they may have taken across a bunch of my different marketing channels. I literally just sending out male, female alike, age indiscriminate, an email that says, I've got these new, really killer layered funky necklaces. So then what's the bad of that version? So we progress a little bit further. Okay, who loves this? Hashtag first name, forgot to put your first name in the field. But that's actually not even the most offensive part about the email. Now what I've done is I've just sent an email to the last group of people who bought necklaces from me. And let's say this guy was my husband and he bought me a layered funky necklace for my birthday. We as marketers actually know that information. You can segment on your customers, you can segment on their purchase reasons, and do a whole lot better than sending an email to my husband who's really not that interested in layered funky necklaces, and it's not my birthday and it's not my anniversary, marketing a new layered funky necklace. This is not going to deliver new revenue to the store. So what is the good behind personalization? The good behind personalization is leveraging everything you know about your customers, building customer segments. Really, building customer segments is not a heavy-handed, big enterprise-only opportunity. It's right in our sweet spot for all marketers today to use technology to build out segments. And then using those segments, have very targeted, specific messages. There's really not that much more time to create messages that are specific for the reward that you get. So Aberdeen Group did a study recently that said personalized emails receive a 14% improvement in open rate and a 10% improvement in click-through rate. So this is actually worth our time from a revenue perspective. So this one goes to me. Okay, you're a fashionista, got to have the latest and greatest. The one on the left is, hey, do you need a funky gift for your loved one? Automation, the good, the bad, and the ugly of automation. So the crazy thing about automation is early on with automation, we were like, man, this solves all kinds of problems for me. It's too much to keep up on a one-to-one basis. I need to just automate, set, and forget. But there's a lot of things about automation that are troubling. Automation for the sake of automation without sort of layering in some smart rules and some smart technology is actually not actually helping us perform any better. There's a whole bunch of things around automation that I could delve into. One in particular is an average of 68% of carts are abandoned. So why is this? Part of it has to do with mobile. Part of it has to do with us as consumers. There was a study done also recently that said, in the morning, we're on our mobile phones. Kind of makes sense, morning commute, I'm on a train, maybe on a plane. Afternoon, I'm on a desktop. Still the same person, by the way, but we as marketers don't necessarily interpret that second phase terribly well. Then there's this third phase, which is evening, and that's when we're doing the second screen thing with our iPads. And we all are doing that pattern. That actually super resonated with me when I read the study. So the question really becomes, how do I think through that as a marketer if I put something in a cart with my mobile phone when I'm sitting on a train, and then I'm on my iPad much later and have an opportunity to sell something to them? So then, we kind of approach automation with a set and forget. Let me just take a bunch of generic industry standards and apply rules. And just assume that all those patterns of putting things into a shopping cart and then checking it out later, maybe or maybe not purchasing it, are for the sole intent of purchasing something. So I send an email in an hour, that's kind of annoying. Then I send one 2 days, same message. And then 1 week, same message, nothing's changed, no purchase is made. The reality is automation, the good, there's all kinds of opportunities here. Behavioral triggers can tell you a lot about what you need to do. And it's not just about abandoned cart. There's opportunity to do post-purchase automated rules. There's an opportunity to do first purchase automated rules. There's an opportunity to do anniversary-based rules. So we need to use automation in a really smart way against sort of a buyer journey model that drives better results for us and a better customer experience for them. Springboard customers specifically are seeing close to 2 times higher click-through rate when they set up a series of different type of behavioral triggered automated emails. Content, it started out seeming really hard, particularly video, right? Who could produce a video? What's so cool about where we are today is the sort of ability, the technology to create video has gone up, and our sort of capacity for consuming content and really high quality content has gone down a little bit, meaning we're much more likely to consume videos than we were before. And video is just one aspect of content that we could talk about. My favorite is to talk about content in the form of advertising. Content is advertising, and context behind content is really super important as well. I am as guilty as everybody else in running these type of ads in the early days of multi-channel marketing. And the worst one that I ever did, since I'm going to protect the innocent, but I'm here, so I'll be honest, confessional moment, is when we tried to do a game inside of an ad. Like that was really going to drive, all that did was drive click-through. It did not drive any purchase, and it did not drive better engagement. So this is bad. Thank God for ad blockers. So then the bad. How many people here have done the search, search, search? I eventually go and buy. In this case, I'm really fired up about that red sofa. It's going to look amazing in my den, and I go and I buy it. And then what happens? The red sofa follows me throughout the internet for the rest of time. I cannot shake the red sofa. But you know what I really need? I need an ad for some pillows, for crying out loud. I need pillows for the sofa. So we really have not quite nailed down this idea of content in the form of advertising across a whole spectrum of what's the lifestyle that the purchaser wants to have. So content the good. So one of the things that I think is so cool about Instagram is this amazing channel for really describing a lifestyle. And that's particularly on the millennial front. Instagram does a great job of weeding out the uncool and attracting the cool. And it's great for all kinds of product. It's great for shoes, it's great for hats, it's great for lamps, it's great for food. I mean, it's really awesome. It's this beautiful consumer display channel. But what's also we're not doing a great job of, but it's super opportunistic, is people want to buy the lifestyle. They don't want to buy the shirt. They want to buy the lifestyle. So we're all sort of stars in our own narrative now, thanks to the social mobile web, and I want to buy the lifestyle. So what you can do today is build a look and let people shop the look. And then this is what the consumer experience is like. You know, I get to that, and I'm like, those Converse high tops are pretty rad. I'd like to have them in green, actually. And nope, not today. That kind of fits my mood. I can then go do some discovery on that look, and then eventually capture each of those products and save them in a cart, or save my email so that you, the marketer who's selling, actually, nope, not today, can remarket those products to me. That's a lot more the context that I'm looking for as a consumer. So social. You know what's really great about social? There's a lot of ugly in social. There's a lot of really great examples of social not working well. Again, protecting the innocent, because we don't want to, we certainly don't live in a glass house, but there's some really good examples of how if you're going to be part of the trend, if you're going to be part of the social conversation, you have to understand what the trend is all about. So anybody familiar with hashtag Why I Stayed? It was actually a trending topic recently around domestic violence. So this is an opportunity for people to talk about why they stayed. You know, it's almost like a confessional moment, and letting the community sort of help them through the process of thinking, you know, why I stayed. You know, feeling the ability to express themselves, pretty powerful opportunity. Unfortunately, this really well-known pizza company tweeted off the hashtag Why I Stayed, you had pizza. So, I mean, completely diminished the value of what was happening there, and really like a terrible, terrible thing to say. And they very quickly heard from consumers about that. A million apologies, didn't read what the hashtag was about before I jumped in. So, you know, we have to be quick, and we have to be nimble. You know, we look at what Oreo did, and we're like, that was so cool. You know, they did that so fast, but fast doesn't beat good, and fast doesn't beat context, which is super important in today's world of social. And one thing to remember is you can always change your trends from your social feed are based on your geography. It's based on data that Twitter knows about you. You can always change that so you can make sure that you're up to speed on what's happening. That's what that change button is all about. So social the bad. You know, same content, same social network, very little thought put into how people behave across these different social networks. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, they're not the same. Shouldn't treat them the same. And by the way, like striped sweaters were pretty rad this year in terms of fall fashion. That was the look. I guess it was that lumbersexual thing that was coming in, which I can't rock. And so just putting up a product inventory shot across all those social channels ignores the fact that we are actually behaviorally using all those social channels for a lot of different reasons. So this is the bad. So let's talk about the good. So this is actually Brownie Brittle. They're a Springbok customer. And the first of this year, there was a hashtag that was trending, and this was actually trending nationally. It wasn't just on a local basis around how do you keep your resolutions for 2016. So hashtag resolutions for 2016. I know I stopped following mine sometime in March, but so I think this is really smart. And one of the things that they were basically saying is, don't like decide you're gonna like wash and fold your clothes religiously every Sunday. You're going to cook at home 5 nights a week. I'm going to run 6 days a week. I'm just going to change my whole life. What Brownie Brittle was doing was leveraging this hashtag to say a little piece of goodness in your life while you're trying to maintain your resolutions for 2016 is going to serve you really well and help you keep your resolutions in 2016. So these really cool imagery, and they varied the content across the different social networks. So on the left is what they did for Twitter, and then here on the right is what they did with Instagram. And super smart here because Instagram's become a great place for recipe sharing. And then here you see what they did is using that same hashtag, slightly different imagery, but leveraging the same sort of overall campaign. And then, thinking smartly, they combined some of their marketing with Chobani. So that's not necessarily about their product, but it's about selling this idea of how you can use Brownie Brittle in the course of your resolutions for 16, Chobani being presumably a healthy way to go about changing your diet. So same trending topic, different social posts, very smart. Analytics. So this is the part where John Moneymaker was pretty obsessed. He knew he was spending a lot of money. He didn't know what was working, really wanted to. So the ugly of analytics is the whole throwing the spaghetti against the wall. I, myself, having been in marketing for a long time, have certainly sat in a couple of meetings across the way from a CFO saying, well, our goals were awareness and more people know about us now, so clearly I'm killing it. But that doesn't work anymore, right? We got to do a lot better than that. And I barely got out of that meeting. So then the next thing is the bad. So then we went through this phase where you know what, I'm going to start measuring KPIs by all these channels, and KPIs is the answer to success. But KPIs isn't the answer to success because it's not telling you pay for play, pay for performance. The other challenge that we ran into is we started then adding up all of the revenue that was generated by each of these individual channels. You know what the problem was with that? It equaled more than 100%. And then it also sort of communicates that channel managers don't work together in the way that the buyer's journey performs. They sort of work against each other. So where are we today? Today, our point of view is that you have the ability to connect all of your purchase data, not just last week's, but your historical data, and all of the things that your channels are doing to be able to see a view into what is happening and what the performance is. Tracking everything, analyzing everything, seeing truly what the ROI is of your marketing. So, examples of omnichannel done right. So yes, these are some Springbok customers. Axtro Sports, they're actually a fitness tech company out of APAC. Really cool products. Certainly wearable sports tech has just become super hot. I know myself, I'm obsessed with tracking my steps. I'm obsessed with tracking my activity level. I currently have a competition going with somebody on my team about who's getting the most steps walking from all around Vegas. I think I'm losing. But anyhow, so they've got a really cool product. But they had 2 challenges, and I'll talk about a very specific instance. But the first was they needed help attributing to their marketing channels what was going on and making wiser decisions on where they spent their marketing budget. So the first thing was, first and foremost, was connecting store data, marketing channels. Second thing was starting to use trackable links, super important. And then the last thing was starting to realize what wasn't working right for them. And one of the biggest pain points they discovered was abandoned carts, back to one of our earlier omnichannel recommendations. So 94% of their carts were being abandoned, so not good. So on the solution side, besides putting in trackable links to see what the performance was across all their channels, the second thing they did was put in a 2-part abandoned cart series, really understanding their customers, understanding their product, understanding a little bit more about what was happening given this full view of marketing channels. So they sent 1 email 3 hours after abandonment, sort of that maybe I was checking it at work, and now that I'm home, I actually want to buy that product. And then the second thing was 3 days after if there had been no action. And they varied the message and they varied the offer. And certainly there was some testing and learning in here, but the results were astounding. Not only did they recover a pretty good percentage of the abandoned cart revenue, but the abandoned cart revenue actually went up versus all their carts. So a 30% improvement for that ongoing personalization and automation rule. Super cool. They're actually now delving into some other parts of the omnichannel marketing mix and seeing great performance. Tadashi Shoji. This is one of my favorite brands, great Springbok customer. They're kind of a luxury fashion brand. They're beautiful clothes. I mean, just stunning clothes. So they're kind of in the realm of they do the New York Fashion Week and the Milan Fashion Week. It's a beautiful product. They had a couple challenges as well. So the first and foremost is they were actually experiencing a terrible abandoned cart. And that actually kind of makes sense. Like their average product cost, like, let's say $200 on the low end, all the way up to like $600. So a single dress at that price point, that's not without its merits to sort of think through the process. So someone could put that into their shopping cart and be like, am I really gonna wear that to the wedding? Is that the dress of my choice? Just gotta feel good about that decision. But they also are a luxury brand. So again, throwing the rule out the window that the industry standard is just to set up a whole bunch of automation rules around abandoned cart, they really thought through the process. They looked at what some of the competition was doing. They launched a single abandoned cart email, just a single one. And the click-through rate on that is 35%, 10%, almost a 10% conversion rate. They've been super happy with the end result of that. Then they took a second phase once they kind of nailed that down, that sort of purchase consideration solution, and they started looking at social. So social was an area that they thought, we really need to do a better job here. And really cool thing they did this spring was they built this concept of a sort of behind the scenes look, which is really very in as it relates to fashion. And again, this is basically a form of advertising. But they also built around what's the spring look. And the spring look wasn't just limited to their clothes, which of course they could have done, which is the hard sell. You might as well just do a pop-up ad. They did it around what was the color scheme of spring. Everything to makeup, nails, accessories, and how you actually implement that look with these really cool behind-the-scenes tips and trades. And again, they sell dresses. This was what they advertised, but they sell dresses. They've seen a tremendous growth in their social followers, something like a 35% increase. And they were able to take this campaign and use it across New York, Paris, and Milan Fashion Week. Super smart, super savvy. Something that you probably see bigger brands doing that was completely capable in and also in our wheelhouse. So Country Club Prep. So this is a company that's based out of the Southeast, sort of near and dear to the Springbot headquarters. They launched a product that really is targeted to the male graduating from one of the schools sort of in the southeastern part of the United States. So think like University of Georgia, Auburn, Florida, that kind of school. And kind of like a preppy but fresh look. And so they're pretty clear, they thought, on who their buyer was, right? I sell clothes to guys. Guys between the ages of 18 and 35, hopefully closer to like 25 to 30. So first thing, they came to us and said, I really want to be sure what marketing channels are working and what marketing channels are not. And so when we started down the path with them, the other really cool and surprising thing, besides putting trackable links in place so they could see what was working and what was not, is they learned something about the demographics of their buyer. Most certainly the majority of their buyers were these 18 to sort of 30-year-old guys, but it turns out their moms buy them clothes, which I can see, and their girlfriends buy them clothes, which you can kind of see, and they have grandparents who say, what do they need? And the mom says, buy them this. So it turns out their audience demographics was different than they thought. And then the second piece of it was, in the process of trackable links, they figured out, you know what, my 18 to 30-year-old guys are on Facebook or Twitter. And when I post on those, if I post something that has a higher dollar amount, I have much lower click-through rate. If I do something under a certain dollar amount, I get a much better click-through rate and a better completion to cart. If I do emails to this demographic, because I've now segmented my base, the mom, the girlfriend, the grandparent, I can market a higher priced product. So this is a great example of someone who started to realize that the buyer consumption across social networks was different, and the offer needed to vary according to what social network or digital channel they were using. They've had a great success. So the marketer's dilemma, as we're coming to the end. What's working, what's not working, and what to do next. So our point of view, really, ultimately, is that you've got to connect your historical data, as much marketing data as possible, add some demographic data, slam that behavioral information in there, connect all your tools and technologies, and get very smart data-driven recommendations in order to be on top of the customer's buyer journey. So what do you do next? So we have sort of a checklist, which is available after this event, on what you should expect from your technology. We are a technology player, so we sort of have a mind around this, and we think very clearly, you got to connect, solve, automate, and then focus on data-driven recommendations. What's the next best action to take? So it's a lot, right? And we've heard some case studies, but what on a massive basis does this do for me? So we had this really cool data analysis between 2014 and 2015 as Springbot customers. And so this is platform data of like 2.5 billion in data, 12 million in products sold, over 1,000 customers, and massively exciting stuff in seeing when people use this sort of data-driven approach to their marketing, the improvements that they see. And the one that stands out to me the most is the 23% year-over-year increase in revenue. I mean, that's like #wow. So what do I do next? So I'm a big believer in crawl, walk, run. We also call it start, stop, continue at Springbot. But whatever it is that you do from here, hopefully you start to own the view of a multi-channel marketing mix. You start to own the view that your customer is going to interact with your brand and your business in a lot of different ways. And then I hope you also start to feel empowered by the idea that you can get a single view of your customers by connecting your cart and all of your marketing actions. I believe in tackling a channel, just like New Year's resolution. Don't try to do it all, but tackle a channel and get really smart data back from that channel. And then as you get success from that, then you start to run. And it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And you start to run toward an omnichannel growth strategy. So that's it. #Unite Your Marketing. And I have a couple minutes left, I think, to answer any questions you might have. Thanks for your attention. I really appreciate it.